basically, just to get into it, and I can be a little more casual like
That's
that
right.
with you. But what I wanted to do here is just give a review of where BASF is as far as any new advancements. Come in.
Hey. Well, I'm glad to be here.
We saved your chair. Come in. Yeah, just wherever you want.
All right. Yeah, I met you yesterday,
We
David.
did. You did. And you'll get acquainted with our soybean stuff.
That's what I want to do.
And I appreciate you coming, but I'm Alvin Rhodes, as we met yesterday. I give you my card, I'll give you one.
Maybe. Let me check.
May not.
If not, please do.
But anyway, I just, what our objective here is just talk about the advancements that we have with BASF, and we're going to cover several different aspects of it, talking about a little bit from the seed treatment standpoint, and then a little bit about Ingenia, where it stands, and not so much the Ingenia review sort of session, but where we're going from that standpoint. Armazon Pro for corn, Revis All system. We're not known for a lot of insecticides, but we got one that's got a little bit of touch from the aspect that we're going to touch on, and then end up a little bit on the fungicide section that is some of our newer developments that we have going. So, but basically, as far as seed treatments are concerned, over the last few years, we've had a lot of mergers. We picked up part of the spinoff of Bayer from that standpoint. BASF had some seed treatments, and we got a lot more because of that aspect of it. But we're continuing to have a lot in the pipeline. The obvious plus, we're excited about, because it's got 4 different modes of action in it, 4 different compounds going with it, and these are the ones right there, because we can control a lot of those diseases, soil-borne diseases, when those seeds there for the seed treatment aspect. With the F500 being headline, basically, controlling 4 different diseases with the Pythium, Fusarium, and others. Xemium, which was marketed as Circatus in the rice area there, SDHI, provides some duplicate control, so you got a little bit different mode of action in it. And of course, metalaxyl and thiophenate have been around for a while, but they gave some good solid control activity, and we put all the 4 together, and this has really worked good as far as soybean seed treatment is concerned. From that aspect, having different modes of action, helping to prevent a big issue as far as resistance development that we're always trying to safeguard against. But that's only one of our seed treatments, and this is only a few more of those things, but some of them that have worked really good as far as soybeans are concerned. Poncho's been around for a while. We're expanding on that. Olivo, we've really gotten a lot of good activity from it because of the SDS and the nematode activity that's there. It's probably the market leader, and for good reason, because it works well. If you think you may have some issues, or you're tested for nematodes and seen some SDS, is very good. Vault IP Plus is coming. It'll probably be labeled during the season this year, so we'll be able to launch it during the 2021 season. But it's going to be a biofungicide, and it's going to have some growth production properties as far as root development is concerned. So it's going to be a little bit different from just a seed treatment because of the activity that it has.
It's got bacteria, obviously, it's got inoculant in it.
It does. It does. It's got with all that, so it's going to supplement anything else that may be in there from that standpoint. And then obviously we've got the flow right and the color coats of various different colors to go along with that. So that's going to help, and we've seen that to do very well from that standpoint. That flow right really works good in moving through those, moving the seed and letting it flow really well. So that's just kind of a little overview as far as the seed treatments are concerned that are there. So now I want to shift gears a little bit. We're not going to spend a lot of time on Ingenia so much because we're well under the way right now as far as training. This is the 4th year of that. And in Louisiana and Mississippi, I think people are getting adjusted to it. We've got a lot of seed that's got the trait in it, which helps obviously, but we're into training. We want to make sure that people do follow the rules, regardless of what state they're in, and stay with the label brand products to do it right, because that's the way to go. It's not worth taking a risk. But where we are headed, though, is a premix. There's a lot of premixes that do come around it, but they obviously have some benefits to go along with that. And we were talking earlier about, new compounds or new premixes, basically the same products in a new name, and that's what this is. Ingenia plus Zidua. Both of those have worked really well. We always want residual. We want different modes of action to help provide better control. We use a lot of mixes, and this will be a premix, and give some residual. Now, it's not labeled yet. We anticipate that it will get labeled during this season and be ready to go for next year. It may come in by use season time, but we won't have a big launch on it from that standpoint. But we're excited about it because it's going to have some great opportunities. And basically where it's going to fit most is on dicamba-tolerant soybeans. No doubt from the standpoint that it can be on those beans, because we've got a lot of flexibility not only for the application of Ingenia, but also Zidua, because Zidua can be applied up until through the V6 stage. That's a new expansion from it from the V3 a year ago. But we still have the same restrictions as far as the application of Ingenia as we do anywhere else. So it will be a cutoff 45 days after planting or up to the V6 stage there, which is the cutoff as far as Zidua is concerned. So it's going to be in that same range, but I think it's going to offer some good opportunities as a premix. Cotton, much less of an opportunity because Zidua is only labeled as a lay-by anyway. And then the Ingenia side of it cuts off at 60 days after planting, and you got a little bit of a narrow window there, so we're not probably going to focus on that as much as the soybeans. That may give some good opportunity there, and that's where a lot of it goes anyway.
The approved products that's on the Ingenia list for tank mixes, is it going to be grandfathered in with the Ingenia Pro?
Well, everything that is on that list has to go through the wind tunnel study by trade name, which Zidua has already approved, and I'm sure they'll have to run another wind tunnel test of the actual formulation once it gets done. I don't foresee it being a problem, but it will be part of the mix.
That's done in North Carolina now.
Yeah, we've got a brand new wind tunnel in North Carolina to test our own. We've done so many of them in the last 3 years.
I got to see the wind tunnel last week. It's impressive.
Awesome. I'll see it next week. But we do want to, highly recommend that everybody should continue to follow the labels as far as the in-season application of dicamba. Use the right ones. Use the correct rate. Ingenia is low, the 12.8 ounces, and XtendiMax Flexipand are somewhat low. When you get to the premixes, there's going to be some differences as far as amount per acre. The Ingenia Pro, I can't necessarily put up the rate there because it's not labeled yet, but it's going to be a very low rate per acre because both Zidua and Ingenia are very low from that standpoint. And that's going to be very effective for the farmers and their uses and their expansion from that standpoint. Shifting gears again, look at corn. Armazon has been around for a while. That technology's been there. Works very good as far as being HPPD control of some broadleafs and grasses early season, but corn's very tolerant to Armazon. It's even labeled on sugarcane in Louisiana, so it has some opportunities there. But the thing that we're looking at now, of course, is Armazon Pro, another premix that are there. This product has been used further north, more so than in our area of Mississippi and Louisiana. It is a mix with Outlook, dimethylamine. So again, giving that residual control to go with that post-activity to help those dual modes of action control, and whether it's pigweed or other broadleaf weeds and grasses from the residual standpoint. So this has looked really good in a lot of our tests, even further south, and has proved to do very well further north, where they've been using it a little bit more commonly. But our timing is going to be somewhat early because you want that residual out early for it to kick in and get the weeds before they come up. This is kind of a list of the weeds and grasses and broadleaf weeds that it will control. We want them kind of small from that aspect of it, and it's worked very well. But we don't want to recommend that as a silver bullet either, because you put a little atrazine, a little glyphosate with it, has worked well for controlling a little bit more expansion of weeds. This is some plots that we had at our own research station at Leland this past year. It's been untreated. I know some fields are even worse than that in some places, but it's done remarkably well as far as controlling those weeds when they were small, it was sprayed, and then providing that residual control with that bottom picture being 75 days afterwards. It really held up very good, and it's already drying down at that point. So we're excited about that and some opportunities. We'll match with some of those competitive early post treatments that were there and be, I think, somewhat in that price range that would be very cost effective. So it looks like some opportunities to corn this next year. We do have Armazon plus Zidua, not the pre-mix, but the tank mix side of it as another option there for mixing, and that too is the same sort of control that we got if somebody would rather go with the peroxysulfone ingredient rather than the dimethylamine side of it. So that's just another option that we have. Shifting gears to rice. From our standpoint on rice, we've been excited about Previsia. Now we're going into the third year of Previsia rice system, which has certainly supplemented our Clearfield system that was initiated like in 2001. But over the course of the time, we have had some growers that have lost some of the activity from outcrossing and abuses of the system and not practicing the stewardship side of it. We have two varieties, PVL01, which was introduced a couple years ago. This year we're really getting into PVL02, which is a step up as far as yield and tolerance and a lot of abilities to go along with that. But it is looking very good, and we'll have PVL03 in a couple of years. So that's continuing to grow and through that market as we've seen. But this system, it's time for it because we need to control grasses that have outcrossed and some issues that have been there. And it's certainly going to be a supplement to the Clearfield system that's been there to help maintain it. And we can do some rotation with it from that aspect. And all these traded crops around, they all need to be prolonged as long as they can because we're dealing with resistance all the way across the board in so many different crops and all these things. But it is tied in with Previsia herbicide with the same name of it there. The ACC Ace quizalofop is certainly dynamite as far as grass activity is concerned, whether it's the volunteer rice, the weedy rice, the red rice, or even barnyard grass and sprangle top. It really hammers it. And I just say, follow the label as far as application is concerned, which we're not going to go through all that aspects of it, but it is good. And we've had fields that they've taken out of rice production because the weedy rice just got so much out of hand. With this, they can come back into it and get rice going again. So that has been a good option for us. And this is one of those fields, split field in England, Arkansas, where this is Previsia, basically cleaned it up there by using those two applications there. And you see the weedy rice scattered across this field, which was just split right down the middle when they treated it, showing those benefits that are there.
How are yields been with the Previsia system? How have they been doing the last 3 years?
It's kind of varied because the first year they got it out late, a little bit low, not too good. The second year with PBL01, it was around 150 bushels or so. It may vary some, but they usually got better than they did. But a lot of them went in the worst case scenarios where it was planted. So they did better than they would have with a conventional variety. PVL02 is probably going to be a 10% higher yield potential with it, so it's going to lead to even better opportunities with it. So they're not at the top, but they're going, and the other varieties down the road are looking better. But
well, just like you said, you're using it because you're having to use it. There's an issue there. That's why we're doing that.
Exactly.
The meeting a while ago where the guy talked about Previsia, somebody asked him that question. He said, I cut more yield on my Previsia rice than I would have on other systems there. So I yielded more than I would have if I hadn't had it, even though it may not be the time you were involved.
Absolutely, and he's starting the process of grass control so that he can build back up over a few years to be able to get back to a good growing condition. And in the meantime, those new varieties to be introduced for Previsia would be better too.
So in theory, they want to do, say, Clearfield every other year or every three.
Great question. This is a basic rotation structure going there. So if you had Clearfield rice, you can't rotate to other rice for 18 months. So if you go to soybeans and kind of break that system And I know some people like to go continuous rice, which is not a good deal for controlling anything that's resistant. Go to soybeans, use different modes of action and those kind of things, which help from that aspect. Then go to Previsia. There is no rotation issue going to Clearfield after Previsia, but it would be the reverse of that. So that's what we want to, and we're telling them, you know, these growers, you know what happened in your Clearfield fields, you can do the same thing with this if you just abuse it and go year after year after year as such. And use both of them and get a system going, and you can maintain both of them for a long time. And this is a field that's kind of practicing that. This was just south of Tunica, actually, near Lula. This is a Previsia rice field that was planted last year, treated with proper rates of Previsia, and it was just totally out of control as far as weedy rice was concerned, and it was clean this past year. This field over here was actually the same thing, but they split it, and like last year that's planted in soybeans, but they're getting it into the rotation system, planted in soybeans, but what you see so much yellow there is the weedy rice. They didn't have any very good control of it at all, but they were planting soybeans here so they could go into Previsia this coming year. And this had soybeans in it the year before it as well. So they're getting in that routine, getting that program going, and the first year they need to start with beans and they can go into Previsia. So this one will be in Previsia this coming year, and it's gonna nail that red rice is out there. I went and looked at this, and it did a phenomenal job. But the mindset is you got to follow the program to do those sort of things. One other thing that's been around a while, of course, is Sharpen on Rice. Does an excellent job as far as pre-application for residual activity, particularly in these areas that got palmer amaranth, and will hold that down until the flood. Usually it's there. But in some areas they've got some resistant flat sedge that are there, annual sedge, and they've been going 3 ounces versus that, and it's done a really good job of holding it down too until the flood comes along. So it certainly controls its or heavy, good suppression. Overall, it's providing good control, and that has worked like a charm in many of these rice growing areas. But shifting gears a little bit, you know, as I said, we're not known to be an insecticide company, but we do have some things that's been in development for quite some time, and we've got some things that are coming. One thing that we probably won't be selling so much this year, but I just want to make you aware of it, and we'll be looking at and exploring. We're going to put it in the Mississippi State and LSU system even more this next year. Safina. What is so good about it is somewhat of a niche, and it gets aphids and white flies as far as cotton and soybeans are concerned. A lot of it's going to be used on fruits and vegetables and a little bit other side. But with this cotton leaf roll dwarf virus becoming an issue, you know, it could help as far as controlling some of the aphids. It's a vector of some of that. So it's an option. But some of the biggest issues around insecticides revolves not as much on the efficacy as it does on the safety aspects of it. And this has got a very good safe background to it. In fact, it doesn't have any pollinator restrictions.
Save the bees.
Save the bees is right. If you can do that, it gets a fast track through the EPA regulation. So it is very safe to bees and you know, ladybugs and those things that were there. But mode of action is unique in that as soon as they come in contact with it, it stops them in a little bit of a slower death, but it didn't take long, like overnight, and they're basically gone. So it was something we're exploring. We need to fit it into a system, so we'll be looking at that with some of the university entomologists there. So we will get in that insecticide business at some point, hopefully provide some opportunities. But to shift gears a little bit further, and I'm going to spend most of the rest of the time talking about our fungicides. And we have provided a lot of opportunities in development over the last 20 years, basically, from the fungicide standpoint. And what we have seen is that it's more than just disease control, even though that is the leading factor there. It's also the plant health thing. And if you've been to any of our sessions that we talked about, of course, we talk about plant health. And that's been big, of course, with Reaxor, which your predecessor was Headline, and of course, Headline Amp. And the reason is we still have seen something. And it's really been a factor into it in addition to the disease control. And a lot of it revolves around the ethylene. And it's, making those plants healthier, helping them survive under stress conditions a little bit more. And the ethylene is a stress enzyme. And when it starts building up, it's tough on the plants to start wilting down and those things. And if you get less ethylene that develop, then it's a little bit healthier plant. And we've done some FLR type photos of looking at it, and there are differences among fungicides. And basically the strobies that were there. We've heard other companies talk about how under stress condition it gets dry, the stomates close. Well, if you close, you're like closing the windows in your hot car and it gets overheated pretty quick and you don't feel too good, you're not growing. If you keep those stomata open, then the plant can breathe a little bit more, it carries on more of the normal activity, so the longer that happens, the healthier that plant is, and hopefully a rain will come in a little bit quicker and it'll keep on going from that aspect of it. So that's what we've seen here, and you see the differences in the temperatures by 4 degrees centigrade or 7 degrees Fahrenheit from that aspect. So it's been an effective thing. So this is one of the examples that we have seen. This is not soybeans, but it is a legume plant basically there. And looking at a drought setup in a greenhouse conditions, when you stop watering it, it's going to wilt down pretty quickly over a matter of days. But if you got a treated plant with this, it's going to help it stay healthier longer than it would otherwise after going through this process there. So eventually it's there, but it's going to give it that greater opportunity to be there. And this is going, it's 5 days here. This is wilting down pretty quick, 6 days, and so forth. So what we did, of course, a lot, we've done that for several years, like in greenhouses, but how does it relate in the field? So that's what we're looking at too, not only on a one-on-one basis, but taking the NDVI photos, which has become pretty common to look at things for many different reasons now, and we also look at the plant health there. This is one that's got Reaxor with the blues and greens being healthier, and in yellows to reds, of course, a little bit more stressed under those particular times of the year, showing that the Reaxor did very good based upon the headline factor that's in it for the large degree that's there. And even with the applications in season, we hear some things about, well, my beans stay green longer, but I'm ready to cut the beans. But actually, if you wait longer, they're filling out those pods and gonna make you a greater yield. So are you anxious to get in there just because you want to, or are you gonna wait for a higher yield? And following it through, I think, has some merits in it from the plant health and disease control aspects that are there. But I say all that from the standpoint of what we've had to this point as far as fungicides, but where are we going from that? And I think that's even more important, and this is where we're excited. We have a brand new DMI fungicide that we're calling Revis All in itself. And it's a next step up over any DMI fungicides that have been around up to this point. It's been a long time since been introduced. It's broader spectrum, stronger activity, and longer residual from that aspect. And all of these things are critical when you're talking about disease control, plant health, and those aspects of it. It is an isopropyl azole, and which is in the frac group 3 with the other fungicides, but it is a different subcategory there, the chemical group. And the actual common name is Fluconazole. That's even a tongue tire to me, even though I've tried to pronounce it a little bit. But that's why we call it Revis All, as a shortener, as a common name to go with that and make it a little bit easier to remember. But all of these some of them have been around for years and years, so especially the triazoles aspects of it. But now we've got a new opportunity to move forward with it. Now, in saying this, some of the reasons that it is different is that a lot of those molecules of those particular fungicides are pretty stationary as individual. They don't move and flex and those kind of things. They're just basically, as DMIs, they're more of a curative than a preventative. even though they have little factors go along with that, but will bind and will be there. But one thing different about Revis All is that it's a little bit more unique. It's got a ring on it that is more flexible than that. It can move within it, and being more flexible, it can adhere to more of the disease particles that are there. And that's why it'll even pick up on some previously DMI-resistant disease strains, because it can adhere to it a little bit stronger, a little bit more hardy to it, and it's got a little bit broader spectrum of activity because it can have more flexibility in how it moves and works. So that's just kind of a little overview of just that part as far as the DMI aspect of it is. But one of the bigger things too is, what about movement? Is it systemic? Now, nothing is systemic moving from the lower part of the plant to the top of the plant. But on the treated leaves, they'll move from where it's treated outward towards the growing points. And that's going to be somewhat true here also. But there is a little bit of difference in how it moves. A lot of the other DMIs basically said, or they may move entirely from one spot that's treated out towards that growing point. But what we've seen here with Revis All is that it'll start where it's sprayed, and it'll start moving out and treat the whole thing, so that you get longer control of the whole leaf in those areas that were there, so you get better activity on it over the period of the long haul for much longer period of time for the treatment. And this is a cross section of one of the leaves, and a lot of times it will get in this little reservoir area within that leaf structure between those cells, and it will kind of move through those areas there and shows how that movement develops over a period of time. So we're excited about that aspect of it. Here is some sweet corn leaves, which was treated with various DMIs, this being the untreated over to the Revis All there, northern corn leaf blight issues there, and this is just strictly the DMI, not with anything else in it, and it's looking good. And we've continuously gotten some exciting results, even out of the university systems, about how well it's looking in disease control. Hadn't had a lot of disease on a lot of our fields here the last couple of years to really get some heavy pressure there in our area, but it's looked good. Now, as far as where we registered with Revis All, last year, like June 26th, so the season was well underway when we actually got that registration. But it came for these crops here, which we got beans and corn in our part of the world, and somewhat on peanuts that were there. We've got a wave 2 that we expect to get registered this year. That's going to include cotton for our area, and of course other sugarcane down the south part of the state. But you see, the whole country's got a whole bunch of opportunities covered, because it's going to have a lot of different crops and all different aspects of it, because it does control so many diseases, so many different ways that it goes. But, and here's some of them, like on beans here, frog eye leaf spot, aerial blight, others, and I guess this is one of the bigger ones, Cospra leaf blight. That's a big issue in Louisiana, we always hear about. And I'm not going to say it's going to be 100% control, but it has shown to be better than anything else that's out there and do a fairly good job of activity. And I know Trey Price has been very pleased with how it's working, and Boyd's been looking at it in some places. So we're excited about it. Corn, of course, you know, all the key diseases that we deal with. Timing's important as far as getting it out there and all, but we're not going to really be selling it on corn and beans right by itself. And we're not going to sell it under the name Revis All. That's just more like the common name part of it. This is what the trade names are. Veltima, which is basically Revis All plus headline, this there. And it's going to be labeled on corn and beans, but you know, our main focus is going to be on corn with Veltima, this there. On soybeans, Revitec will be the name of the fungicide, which is a 3-way mix. Basically, Revis All plus Preaxor is what it amounts to go with it. So we got a strong DMI to go with the good product that Preaxor is in it. And of course, by itself, we'll maybe use it on peanuts because they vary so many applications of all what they do. But these are also labeled on peanuts. So if we got a few scattered fields and this is available, it is labeled for use on peanuts. So it's not an issue. And then you get into other things that we don't deal with quite so much in the Delta states. As far as Deltima is concerned, a little bit more specifics about it. The labeled rate will be 7 ounces. Timing, VT, in that area is basically where we've been from the aspect of the timing of the headline amp and after tassel. You can have some early timings from the aspect of whatever control you're getting to and the diseases that were there. But it has, 12 hours reentry, 21 days as far as pre-plant coming in. So not any real issues to deal with. So it's looking good. We're moving forward with it, and you'll probably see some of this next year, not a whole lot, because we still have some of the others that we'll be concentrating on. Didn't get it in time last year to put it on a big acre cornfield out there, but we did have Revit in the field to the further north on a cornfield, and this is showing that plant health benefit basically, and it just keeps it greener, longer, more productive. And as you can see, the yields from 172 versus the 146 as far as the untreated is concerned. And this is where those NDVI pictures show a difference under the stress there versus the cooler plants from the aspect of higher yield when you've got a more healthy plant to go along with that. Now, Revit for the beans, which will be our primary thing, and it's looked really good with the 3-way. The label rate is going to be 8 ounces as a good standard rate across anything that's there. It is basically the premix with Preaxer to go with it, which we've had a lot of good uses and activity with Preaxer. And as far as diseases, this is expanded more than what I showed you earlier, but aerial blight has been a problem, especially the further south in Louisiana you go, that's there. But frog eye and Psychospora leaf blight is going to be a very good help for us from that standpoint. And it's just a matter of all those things. So that's going to be a plus that we're going to be seeing. Here's a couple of shots as far as frog eye is concerned. I know we've got some varieties that help as far as some tolerances there, but obviously it's going to provide some activity versus what we've seen other places with other compounds that were in there. It does provide that issue where it keeps those stomata open a little bit longer and keeps them a little healthier. And this was a comparison where if you had a whole field of either of those, you wouldn't know any difference. But this was a side-by-side comparison of treated, and in this case they saw 4 more nodes of the Revit treated versus the Revis, and more nodes mean more beans. And as a result, that's a good positive thing that we're seeing. And we're still learning, getting more information as we go on some of these larger field accounts. This is one where Revit was on the fields. These were untreated that you see more the brown side, just like I was showing you earlier. Helps them mature out a little bit longer and making a little bit larger yield because they're filling out those pods a little bit more. The beans are filling out. So they just don't need to rush in and cut them too early.
You know what happens though in fall when the rain starts, they're trying to.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah, they'll say, well, it's green stem. I can't wait.
Get it out.
And I know it's easier for me to say it than it actually happens for the farmers. They want to get them out of the field, no doubt, and get what they can. But anyway, we'll see. In this case, it was a big difference, though. I mean, look what they would have left out in the field if they hadn't sprayed it. All right, and then just some other examples. The NDVI pictures have really showed a lot. That case over here is some strips between Revis and Revit. They sprayed the Revis first, and they ran out of it right here, out of the tank. And so they picked up with the Revit. And even from that comparison, the Revit was holding out longer. So this gives us a lot of excitement about what's coming this area. And farmer said that, he's always thought fungicides were best during wet years. This was a dry year. And he even commented about how it made a difference from that standpoint because it got timely from the stress standpoint. And just a few other shots here showing even Revit over just straight Preaxer is helping from the plant health because of the activity to go along with it. And all of these are down in New Roads, Louisiana, or a couple of them are there. There's a combinations of a lot of different treatments to go along with it, but it's still a good example that are there. We'll be doing some more of these this next season, so we're going to try to expand on it and look at it and see how we go with it. This one was just strips of Preaxer versus Revitec, and all that's going on from that standpoint. And Preaxer does good. We always recommend another DMI sort of compound with it because of the frog eye thing. But we're going to move eventually to the Revitec because it's just a better product as time goes on from that aspect of it. So, you know, over the years we've done a lot of testing. Preaxer versus Untreated is always good. I say always. I mean, essentially it is from that aspect of it. So the odds are there for disease control in the plant health. But Revitec is a step up above that. And so that's what we're seeing it as a new step, going from, you know, in this case, our average is like a little over 5 bushels that we're seeing versus the 3.5 that we've seen, and we've got some pretty good varieties of beans out there for sure. And we've seen this either under low, medium, or high infestations of diseases that were there. And obviously, the higher the disease, the more challenging it is, but obviously the greater control that you're going to get from that aspect of it. So, and this is our national average for the various different parts of the country, and it may vary a little bit from plot to plot, but in general, versus the Untreated, with the Revitec, we're seeing a consistency as far as treatment with that R3, R4 timing pretty much there from the Revitec aspect of it. But we're excited to continue with fungicides, you know, from Preaxer now to Revitec on beans, and then all the Revis All that's there. But that kind of covers what I wanted to share. Now we got some question time if y'all want to talk about some stuff. Discussion time.
Is Revitec, is it labeled already for 2020? It's already ready to go. So.
It is. It's labeled and should be there around. And Bill, they don't have any out yet, I don't think.
I don't remember the production date.
Yeah.
I lost my voice. But it'll be soon. We'll be stocking.
Yeah.
What about the Ingenia residual in it that's...
With Ingenia Pro?
Yeah, the Ingenia Pro.
All right.
When is the...
It's not labeled yet.
Not labeled yet.
Yeah, we've been thinking it's going to get labeled for the past year at different points, but it hasn't. But we do feel comfortable that it will sometime this spring. But because we don't have it now, we can produce it now, so it'll be available to sell this year. But hopefully we'll get some out. Hopefully, if we do, we'll be putting in some demos around, spraying it around.
So as of right now, you can't tank mix residual up here?
Oh, you can tank mix.
Okay, so it is
Yeah.
tank mix. Okay, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Residua is certainly on the approved list
See, I
for
didn't
tank
know-
mixing.
I never looked, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's good, but it'd be easier once we get a premix in a lot of
And it's
cases
just
to have it.
one and done, so.
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of it goes. And see, when you can go over the top with Zidua up to the V6 stage, you got a lot of flexibility there on those applications. So,
Have you seen any of these fungicides help with seed quality? Like when you get a bunch of rains late in season?
you know, we have, that's hard to test because you can't plan for that in advance too much.
Yeah.
But it's helped as far as the quality, especially when the pod stem blight becomes an issue. I think it controls a lot of that, which helps prevent it. I don't have a lot of data to actually show you that it does. It's probably a little bit more on the disease control rather than just strictly providing better quality.
Okay.
And controlling disease will help.
And that's something Louisiana farmers, I think, are struggling with late rains.
Oh yeah, they had a bunch of it last year.
Yeah.
It was just devastating. But we've seen it just in visual aspects of it that it can. The thing there is the timing of the application. If it goes out to R3, R4 stage, you're talking about late season is a long way down the road. Now, I think it would have better activity if they come back with a second shot on
Yeah,
the
closer to maturity.
R5. Yeah, at that point, then it would provide better protection. And some will do the 2 shots, most of them should do one.
Yeah.
and we'll get you some opportunities for you to look at it over this next
Oh,
year.
please, yeah.
Of course, Boyd's going to have a bunch of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, anything soybeans, I would like to help out.
Sure, absolutely. We're glad to have you, no doubt. I'm done.